Magnificent food would be elegantly served from a decorated table, and hours of preparation would go into making elaborate dishes for the guests to enjoy.
You want to grab yourself a pigeon. Beautifully cooked with orange there.
Top 10 unusual things that happened in ancient Roman parties. First on the list, we have reclining on couches. Now, at Roman banquets, the use of reclining on couches was not just a matter of comfort, but a symbol of social status and a high luxury. The host and guests would lie on elaborately cushioned couches arranged around a low dining table, creating an intimate and relaxed atmosphere. The act of reclining was a demonstration of wealth and privilege, as it signified that people there could afford such lavish arrangements. Now, this custom not only influenced the dynamics of the meal, but also reflected the Romans' penchant for indulgence and leisure in their social gatherings. Next up, we have entertainment and excessive feasting. Roman banquets were renowned for their opulence, featuring a staggering array of many different dishes, from simple fare to exotic and rare delicacies. Guests were treated to a beyond extravagant culinary experience that showcased the host's wealth and generosity. As the feasting unfolded, various forms of entertainment took center stage. Musicians, dancers, and acrobats would be entertaining the guests, creating a multi-sensory experience. The excessiveness of both food and entertainment underscored the Romans' desire to impress and indulge in the pleasures of life during these social gatherings. Next up, we have unusual ingredients and intellectual conversations. Now, the Roman culinaries included ingredients that might seem very strange to modern day cooking. Dishes with exotic components like flamingo tongues and peacock brains were not uncommon, because Romans had a deep fascination with unique and rare foods. Beyond the delicious sounding delights, Roman banquets were intellectual forums where guests engaged in discussions on philosophy, politics, and various other topics. Now, that always encouraged lively debates, adding an intellectual side to their festivities. Now, the combination of unusual ingredients and intellectual discourse brought out the diverse of interests among the Roman elites. Ancient Roman parties were multi-factored events that went way beyond just eating. Coming up next, we have the vomitorium misconception. A vomitorium is a room where guests who had drank too much wine or ate too much would go to throw up and be sick and to be away from any other guests at the party. But contrary to the popular belief, the idea of a vomitorium as a designated room for guests to purge is supposedly a historical misconception. There is no concrete evidence supporting the existence of these rooms in this context of Roman banquets. The term vomitorium is more accurately associated with architectural features designed to facilitate the rapid exit of large crowds. Now, while Romans certainly indulged in very large feasts, the notion of intentional purging as a part of dining experience is likely an exaggeration or misunderstanding, but I personally believe that this one could have been true. So next up, we have the flower petal rain. Now, the flower petal rain was a deliberate way to make the banquet look and smell nicer. Hosts would make sure to throw petals from different flowers, not just because they looked good, but also because they smelled very good. Now, the petals would gently fall from above, making a pretty and colorful rain. This was all done to make the banquet feel abundant, beautiful, and just fancy overall. The flower petal rain meant more than just looking good. It was like the host saying, "I'm being nice and welcoming to you." Now, the idea was to make the banquet an experience that stuck with the guests. Now, the nice smell and the colorful scene made the whole thing feel more special. This way of decorating matched with the Romans liking things to be really fancy, and they were careful about how things looked and felt during their parties. Next, we have their real estate and the exotic animals. Now, in ancient Rome, people threw really fancy parties to show off how rich and important they were. These parties, usually thrown by wealthy people, were a way to brag about their money and their status. Although fancy houses and cool animals weren't the main focus of these parties, they were still part of showing off how well off the hosts were. Rich Romans liked to have their big parties in fancy homes called villas. Villas were big properties with pretty gardens, fancy buildings, and large rooms for parties. Picking a cool venue was a way for the host to show everyone how much property they actually owned. And sometimes fancy animals were brought in to entertain at these parties. The rich Romans wanted to impress their guests by showing off rare and exotic creatures from faraway places. They'd have animals like lions, leopards, elephants, and even unique birds. These animals were either put in special cages or included in performances to wow and amuse their guests. Next up, we have wine consumption and their drinking games. Now, wine played a very central role in Roman banquets, with guests indulging in very large amounts throughout the festivities. Drinking was not merely a means of quenching thirst, but a social activity by itself. To elevate the event, hosts introduced drinking games and challenges, encouraging guests to consume more wine. Now, these games added entertainment to the event, making a fun atmosphere. Wine that was flowing freely became a very common part of the social fabric, enhancing the overall enjoyment of the Roman banquets. Next, we have the slave participation. The role of slaves in Roman banquets was very common. While serving as attendants responsible for ensuring the smooth flow of the event, some hosts permitted slaves to participate in the festivities as well. Now, this strange inclusion ranged from allowing them to share in the meal to engaging in a light banter. The dynamic between slaves and free individuals during these occasions just showed a glimpse into the complexities of Roman social hierarchies. While slaves were primarily in service roles, the occasional participation in the events showcased the type of relationships with Roman households. Next, we have fishing for danties. To add a bit of amusement to the banquets, hosts sometimes incorporated small fish ponds beneath dining couches. Guests could engage in the playful activity of fishing for live fish while reclining. Now, this interactive feature added a very important aspect to the banquet experience. It not only provided a form of entertainment, but it also showed how the Romans desired to create engaging and memorable social gatherings. The unusual occurrences at ancient Roman parties were from the debunked myth of vomitoriums to the beautiful fragrant showers of flower petals. Each element contributed to the rich and diversity of the Roman social life, giving off their love for extravagance and innovation in the entertainment. And lastly on this list, we have their customs and rituals. Roman banquets were not just about the consumption of food and drinks, they were also elaborated with social rituals. From the meticulous planning of the seating arrangement to the act of toasting, each aspect of the banquet had its own significance. Toast, often accompanied by the libation of wine, served as an expression of goodwill, friendship, and loyalty with the guests. The rituals surrounding the banquets reinforced social hierarchies and the importance of shared experiences in the Roman social life. Now, ancient Roman banquets were dynamic and multifaceted events that transcended a culinary indulgence. Now, the interplay of unusual customs, sensory experiences, and social rituals created a rich tapestry of entertainment, showing off the Romans' flair for extravagance, innovation, and the art of hosting memorable gatherings.